Thank you very much and thank you, Dr. Canagarajah,
நன்றி. அனைவருக்கும் இங்கு வருகை தந்திருக்கின்ற மாணவர்களுக்கும் பேராசிரியருக்கும் டாக்டர் சுரேஷ் அவர்களுக்கும் மற்றும் அனைவருக்கும் பொதுவாக இங்கு பங்கு பெற்றிருக்கின்ற தங்களது திறமைகளையும் தங்களது இந்த கருத்தாடலில் உங்கள் கருத்துக்களை பகிர வந்திருக்க அனைவரையும் அன்போடு வரவேற்றுக் கொண்டு ஞானசேகரம் பேராசிரியர் தொடர்வார். நன்றி ஞானசேகரம் பேராசிரியர் அவர்களுக்கு.
Thank you, Raj, for your kind words, and thank you for your great service to the Tamil community in and out of Canada. Let us take a moment to pray for those who have lost their precious life due to coronavirus in our diaspora community and around the world, and we pray for their soul to rest in peace. On behalf of the Center for Education, Innovation, Leadership and Community Service, a Tamil community outreach initiative launched in 2019, I take a great deal of pride in welcoming Dr. Suresh Canagarajah, a director of Migration Studies Project and a distinguished professor of the Department of Applied Linguistic and English at Pennsylvania State University in the United States of America. Dr. Canagarajah is a scholarly writer, and he's a publisher and a community activist too. And by the way, Dr. Canagarajah writes poems in Tamil. He's very good in writing poems in Tamil. I know very well that. He will be moderating today's the panel, today's discussion panel. And thank you, Dr. Canagarajah, for your great help and support to the Tamil community. And at this point, I want to say one thing: the diaspora community should be celebrating the successful educators like Dr. Canagarajah in the diaspora community. And we thank you, Dr. Canagarajah. And also with us today here are the brightest and the talented young panel speakers from the Tamil diaspora community. And with me here today is Meera Kajendra Kumar. She has recently graduated with her master's degree in public health from University of North Carolina. And congratulations, Meera, for your educational achievement of getting your master's. And with me, also Mahishan Gnanasegaran. He has recently graduated from Princeton University in New Jersey with politics as his major. And Mahishan is also planning to pursue his studies in law in the near future. And good luck, Mahishan, and welcome to the panel. And another member of the panel is Vidya Kandan. She is a growing Carnatic vocal artist, and she is currently pursuing her pharmacy course at Rutgers University. And Abhisha Mahendran is from the United Kingdom, and she is currently pursuing her degree in material science and engineering at the University of Birmingham. Finally, I am here with Grita Jayaraja from Germany. Grita is currently pursuing her medical engineering course at the University of Applied Science in Germany. I want to welcome you all for today's panel discussion to speak about the pressing challenges and obstacles faced by young diaspora and how they try to overcome those challenges. I can't wait to hear your amazing opinions and fruitful suggestion and solution. And finally, I want to leave an important questions to all young diaspora from around the world. There is a dire need for us to get involved in building a vibrant Tamil community in and out of Sri Lanka and India too. Now, this is my question. How much effort each of you in the diaspora community is willing to put forward to make our community better, stronger, more vibrant, and self-sufficient? Let us be the change we want to see in the world. With that said, I now want to invite Dr. Suresh Canagarajah to take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Nyanam, for introducing us. We will get to your question about how to help the Tamil community in a few minutes. We want to get quickly to the topics and questions we need to discuss today. But I just wanted to show the rich diversity of people we have here, the rich diversity of students in the diaspora. So very briefly, I asked each one of them to tell us where they were born, where they are now, what languages they speak, so that we can understand how our Tamil community in the diaspora is very diverse. But just a quick word about me. I had all my education in Sri Lanka, in Jaffna, in the Tamil medium, with English as an additional subject. And I started teaching in the University of Jaffna. I was there till 1985, and as always, the universities there send us to the United States or Europe for graduate studies. A lot of us usually stay back in the United States or Europe. We don't want to go back. But in my case, I went back after my PhD in 1990, as soon as my study leave expired on June 1st, 1990. And people who know the history of Jaffna will know that on June 11th, 1990, there began the Second Elam War. That was the army walking into the Jaffna area, or the fighting broke out. So I was teaching there till 1994, end of 1994. But after that, the army started walking into the peninsula, and everybody started fleeing as refugees. And that's when I came back to the United States with 2 infant daughters. So I've been kind of back and forth between the United States and Jaffna. Last year, I went to Jaffna to conduct some workshops for English language teachers in Klinochi and Jaffna and other schools. So that's briefly my background. So we will go around with each of our panelists and say a few words about our background. So we'll start with Mahishan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you all. And thank you, Dr. Canagarajah, for your moderating and for your time. So I was born in Sri Lanka, and I've had my schooling in the United States for most of my life at the moment. So I recently graduated, received my bachelor's degree in political science, and I am pursuing further studies in law. And I speak Tamil fluently. I can read and write and speak Tamil. I also have learned Spanish during my studies in the United States, and I also very recently began learning Hindi. So I also speak Hindi and understand Hindi as well. So I speak 3 languages in addition to English, which is another of my native language. And so I speak 4 languages, and I intend to continue learning more languages and engaging with the diaspora community, both in India and Sri Lanka.
Okay, the next person is Preeta.
Hello everybody, good evening. My name is Preeta Jayaraja. First of all, thank you Dr. Canagarajah and Nyanam sir for this opportunity. It's an honor to talk with you everybody. I'm 20 years old and I was born in Germany. When I was a child, I lived in Canada, so my first language was French. Then we moved back to Germany. Now my first language is German. My mother tongue is Tamil. So Tamilum பேசுவேன் எழுதுவேன் கேட்பேன். In additional, is English my fourth language basically, but after my A-level and further engineering, the language priority went on higher, so I can speak 4 languages too, like Maishan. And yeah.
Thank you, Brita. Let's move on to Meera.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Canagarajah and Mr. Nyanam sir and EET TV for hosting us today. I was born in Jaffna Hospital in 95, so that makes me 25 years old. And I did my undergrad at New York University, at NYU, and then I came back to the South, to University of North Carolina at Charlotte, where I just recently completed my master's in public health degree. So for those of you who aren't familiar with America, so the South is very spread out. We don't have a large diaspora community here. There is a small community, but I didn't grow up with many Tamil speakers around me. But I did attend some Indian Tamil school, Indian Tamil Sangam nearby, so I can speak only 3 languages, not 4. But I can speak English, Tamil, of course, and Spanish. I did study abroad and during undergrad in Argentina, where I lived for about 4 months. So I am fluent in those 3 languages, and I'm very looking forward to talking today.
Thank you, Meera. So let's go to Vidya next.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Canagarajah and Nyanam sir. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be a part of this panel discussion today. I was born in New Jersey, and I've done all of my schooling here. I'm currently 21, and I'm entering my 5th year in the 6-year Doctor of Pharmacy course at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. In terms of languages, aside from English, I'm fluent in Tamil. I can also read and write, but I'm also very interested in languages in general, so I'm trying to expand and learn more. So in my schooling, I took up Spanish, and currently I'm trying to become slowly more fluent in Hindi as well. But so far, for now, I'm most fluent in English and Tamil.
Thank you, Dia. So finally, Abisha.
Hi, I'm Avisha. I'm 19 years old. I would firstly like to thank everyone at EET TV and Centre of Education and Dr. Canagarajah for organising today's event. I'm a 2nd-year material science and engineering student at the University of Birmingham, but I was born in London, but I've lived in Birmingham for the past 2 years. I speak English, but I can also speak Tamil. I haven't quite learned how to read and write yet. I also learned Spanish whilst I was at school, so those are the 3 languages I can speak.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. So we want to start with the first question, which is about in all our countries, how closely should we get integrated into our national and social life where we are living? So I recently had a conversation on Facebook with another Tamil friend. He saw that I was very active in the politics in the United States on issues like Black Lives Matter. And he said, as Tamils, and not just Tamils, as any ethnic minority, we should just forget about our identity. We should get involved in the American life or wherever we are living. We should present ourselves as people who belong to that country. So in my case, it's American. In Abisha's case, it will be as a British citizen. And Preeta's case, it would be as a German citizen. So that's an important concern for all of us. Should we represent our Tamil identity in the countries where we live, or should we hide our identity and become part of the mainstream in the countries where we live? So I thought I'll invite Maishan to get us started. So Maishan, what do you feel about this?
Yes, well, thank you for the question, and thank you to all of the other members of the panel for introducing themselves. So that's an interesting question, Dr. Canagarajah. I think many of us have had experiences where we have had to talk about our Tamil identity, as well as our American identity, if not, British or German identity. And I think that you can, or at least in my experience, it's possible to be both Tamil and American, because if you understand America, America is made of many immigrants. America is a country with Irish immigrants, with Spanish immigrants, with German immigrants, with Indian immigrants, with Chinese immigrants. So when we talk about being American, it's really about being an immigrant. And Tamil people are the most recent immigrants to the United States. And I think Tamil people, and especially us in the diaspora, we can also be American as well as Tamil. So it is important that we speak about being Tamil and practice our culture and remember our culture. But it is also important to realize that we are also American, and that it is we can represent our culture. We can speak to our friends about our history and our music and our food and our community, and at the same time we can also talk about the politics and speak about Black Lives Matter and other issues as well. So that's my view about that's my answer to your question.
Yeah, thank you. No, I totally agree. I think in similar ways. I was wondering whether others have anything to add about maybe how difficult it might be in your own countries to identify yourself as Tamil, in the sense that maybe you might face biases, prejudices, discrimination, or maybe do you know others in your countries, other students, other parents who belong to the Tamil community who feel uncomfortable about representing their Tamil identity? Do any of the others? Okay, thank you, Meera. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I'd like to definitely add on to that. Like I said earlier, I'm from the South, so there's been a lot of news about Black Lives Matter and some of the prejudice that occurs here. I'm from Charlotte, so it's a big city in the South. I personally grew up here since I was 2 years old, but I haven't had any racial discrimination or anything like that against me, fortunately. But I do think it's a very difficult question when someone asks me where I'm from, because I think it depends a lot on the context. Because here, if I'm in a mostly white neighborhood, I'm in a mostly white neighborhood, and if they ask me where I'm from Charlotte, but I'm also from Sri Lanka. I'm also from Jaffna. And then when I was at NYU, I wouldn't, and it depends, because that's New York. That's a big melting pot of cultures, and sometimes I would always find it difficult. Do I say I'm from North Carolina, or do I say I'm from Sri Lanka? Do I say I'm from Jaffna? It's a difficult decision to make sometimes, and then sometimes I'll say I'm from North Carolina, and they'll be like, no, but really, where are you from? And I'm like, I spent most of my life in North Carolina, but then I realized, they're asking about my ethnicity, and from there I would talk about my Tamil identity as well.
Yeah, no, that is a good point. It's a choice about where we should identify ourselves as Tamil or not. So in some contexts, it might not be relevant because, they are concerned about where you're studying probably, or, where you live. But in relation to that, one of the problems a lot of us face is people don't know Sri Lanka. So I think most immediately what happens is a lot of people think you're from India, if at all, right? Or sometimes it could be Bangladesh or Pakistan, the whole of South Asia. And I spoke to some students way back who said, I was talking to some students in Toronto a few years back, and they said they identify themselves with Indian students because they are a large group, they are strong, they are more visible, and their friends are from India. And they feel, if they think I'm Indian, that's okay. And they associate themselves with India. Do others have issues like that where people have difficulty with identifying Sri Lanka, and therefore they tend to think of you as from South Asia in general, and you kind of go along with it?
And I have one quick comment, Dr. Suresh, and I think this is relevant here. Vidya Kandan is from Tamil Nadu, India. So she should be the right person to give us her opinion. Vidya, you want to say anything?
I guess it may be different from me, being that I'm from India. But I guess I can only echo what Mahishan and Meera had said in terms of my experience of identifying both with my Tamil identity and my American identity. I think that's something that's really beautiful about when you do grow up in a different country than your home country, is that you get to have, I think, like a dual identity in some sense, where you can identify both with the country that you've grown up in, as well as the country that has given you your culture, your heritage, food, music, and everything. So in terms of the question that you'd asked before, perhaps like feeling uncomfortable, I certainly have noticed maybe people may feel uncomfortable to be dressed in like not American clothing in American restaurants and coffee shops. And when I was young, at first, I too felt uncomfortable, but as I grew up, I felt that it was my job to feel the most proud of where I come from and my Tamil identity. So now, for example, I'm a musician, and if I have just given a concert, I'm happy to go to a restaurant or a coffee shop wearing my concert attire, even if that's not necessarily American attire. And I've found that people are very positive and are very much only giving compliments and are very happy and curious to learn more about my culture and my background. So that has definitely been a positive thing that broke my initial fear of, oh, maybe people will think I'm different or judge me. I think people, in my experience, have been very accepting and happy to learn about who I am and my culture and where I come from.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's move on to a particular aspect of culture. You know, we're talking about dress and cultural performances. We will come to those issues as well. But one of the strong issues about culture is language. And a lot of people feel language embodies our culture, communicates our culture, spreads it to the next generation of Tamils. We're able to talk about our culture. We can't talk about it as effectively in English or any other language. But at the same time, there are differences of opinion about whether this children, the second generation of Tamils, should speak Tamil. So soon after I came to the United States, in 1994, I was doing a research in Toronto, London, and California to talk to Tamil parents about how important Tamil language was for their children. And some parents said, why should we waste our time in teaching Tamil? Because in order to be successful in this society, our children should know English. Or the language that is more dominant and powerful here. And then they said, it's difficult to learn or teach multiple languages. So we want to focus on teaching English. There are also kind of myths about whether people can speak multiple languages, whether they can learn multiple languages. You are all successful in speaking multiple languages, so you won't agree with this. But there are some parents who believe one language will interfere with the other language and not make you proficient and fluent as you would want to be. So they say it's much better to just focus on English alone. So I was wondering about your opinions and about how important is Tamil language for the children here. So let's start with Preeta, how she feels about this question.
So on the first hand, I can understand some parents because how you said child. So they perhaps think the children has a thought shuttle because a school and the life, social life, but there's some consideration we need to know, like most of you said are English countries, and many Tamils can speak English. Basically, who was in Sri Lanka, the second language is English. So if they move to Britain or Canada or America, they will continue to talk in English. So they will also continue to talk at home with their children in English. So that's one side. So many parents are thinking about it. But countries like non-English countries like Germany, France, or in Canada, Quebec City, which is like French colony, they have no opportunity to speak their language like Tamil or English. They need to learn the third language, German or French. So in that time, in that gap, like 1 to 2 months, which take really long time to learn a new language, they of course speak at home Tamil. So that's why non-English countries mostly speaking in Tamil, like children like me. But as I said, I can understand some parents. They think if my child is with the Tamil community, perhaps he's not thinking about the studies, or he's mixing all languages together, and perhaps there will be many doubts. But if they not teach their children their language or to show what they are, they will fall in identity crisis. That's a huge point, because everybody of us, we are asking us, who am I? And I ask every day, not every day, but when I was a kid, I asked my mom, tell me about why you came back to Germany, or she also teach me, of course, Tamil. She was a government teacher in Sri Lanka, and for her it was really important that her children are talking in Tamil. And if children can't speak their mother tongue, there will be no bond. There will be perhaps a little break, and they will try to isolate themselves if they are with the families. So they need to try, or to speak Tamil. I know it's very hard. Even ஆரம்பத்துல நான் தமிழ் படிக்கும் பொழுது அது கசத்தது. 1ஆம் 2ஆம் ஆண்டு படிச்சு முடிச்சதுக்கு பிறகு அது எனக்கு இணைத்தது. ஸோ நெல்லிக்கனி மாதிரி அது சாப்பிட்டோன்னா கட்டாயம் நாங்கள் எங்களுக்கு பிடிக்காதுன்னு வீசுவோம். ஆனா அது பிறகு 12ஆம் வகுப்பு முடிச்சதுக்கு பிறகு ஓகே இப்ப தமிழ் எனக்கு தெரியும். Also of course every children they watch Tamil movies or talk with their families, but நான் தமிழ் பள்ளிக்கூடத்தை படிச்சதால எனக்கு கிராமர் இலக்கணம் கட்டாயம் அது வந்ததால உங்களோட இன்னும் கதைக்கு வரேன், இன்டர்வியூஸ் கொடுக்குறேன், ஈவன் ஃபேமிலி தமிழ் கம்யூனிட்டியோட கனெக்ஷனுக்கு வருது. And I personally wrote a post-diploma in dance, and we need to read in Tamil books. So this helped me really, and it's very hard to learn Tamil. In German we say Stolpersteine, and da an kashtam. For a diaspora, அது உண்மையா கஷ்டம், ஆனா அது செய்யலாம். And I think it's very important if a child to know where he's from, why he's speaking his mother tongue, because they will not fall in the identity crisis. And the next generation, they will teach it. And sometimes, so if it depends on our, it's on our hand, because sometimes if we don't speak, if many move to from Sri Lanka to Germany or France or Canada. So if many Tamils don't speak Tamil anymore, one day we will not have Tamil. You know what I mean? So it's really depend on our so எங்க கையில தான் இருக்குது. நாங்க எப்படி தமிழை வளர்க்கிறோம் வந்து இப்ப எங்கள்ட பெற்றோர் எல்லாம் எங்களுக்கு கட்டாயமா படிப்பிச்சவங்க. இப்ப நீங்க எங்களுக்கு நாங்க எங்களோட பிள்ளைகளுக்கு போகணும். And main point, identity crisis.
Good point, good point. Yeah, so a couple of things. One is that a lot of people say when the first generation comes here to a new country, there is a major identity crisis. They feel uncomfortable. They feel young people might face a lot of peer pressure, especially in cities where you don't have Tamil people living around you. So there is a quick transition to the main language, English or German. But a lot of people say after a while, after maybe 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, we don't face that pressure very strongly because we are now settled down. We feel comfortable. You have your own identity. You are successful, and people might know more Sri Lankan Tamils or Indian Tamils around there. So there is a chance that Tamil might be spoken more widely in the future. We'll have to wait and see. So I wanted to ask you, ask the others whether they feel a stronger pressure to move quickly to English or other dominant languages right now in the children around you. And one other question, I'll let Preeta add a few more thoughts with one other point, which is that Preeta mentioned that for people in Germany, France, etc., learning Tamil and the local language can be challenging because for Tamil people in other countries, English is already a second language. They speak English. But it's also a blessing in disguise because what I have found is in English-speaking countries like United States, England, Canada, because the parents and the grandparents know English, the children, right from their birth, they start speaking in English. There's no problem because everybody in the house knows English and they don't know any Tamil. So the research I did when I came back, I found a very swift decline in the knowledge of Tamil because the children could easily speak English with their parents and grandparents. And what I was told, I haven't done research in other countries, but I've been told by friends that children in France, Germany, Holland, Norway, etc., are much more multilingual because their parents don't know German, their parents don't know Dutch, their parents don't know French, so they have to talk in Tamil most of the time. So it's a kind of a blessing in disguise. I know, as Preeta said, it's a very stressful to deal with 4 or 5 languages, but at the same time, the children there end up learning more languages. And one more thing, a lot of, at that time, around the early 90s, people used to have competitions in Europe for Tamil singing, Tamil speech, etc. I'm not sure whether it's still done anymore, but they told me, okay, good, Preeta says yes. They said the people who win those awards are not from English-speaking countries. They are from Germany, France, etc. You know why? Because they speak Tamil all the time. Whereas for people in Canada, England, etc., they memorize their Tamil, writing their speech or song in English because it's more like a textbook language for them. They're not using it much. So that was just an observation about how sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. So we'll start with Preeta adding some more thoughts, and then we'll have others also telling me whether they see this pressure for some families in English-speaking countries to move swiftly to English. Go ahead, Preeta.
Like in German 15 years ago or 10 years ago, they said we need to talk at home only German. So they told it to my mom, and this happened to me. 10 years later, now they say if I go and say, hey, or write in my CV and say, yeah, I can speak Tamil, right, and did that to a grade, they are really, it was like, oh, wow, this is really good. Because they know if you speak more than one language, it's very important, even to communicate as like in the like engineering. From Tamil Nadu, our school, our Applied University has also a Tamil Nadu University. So to communicate, it's very good, but yeah, that's also a problem in Germany. They had already tried that we need to talk at home German, but of course our parents, here at Tamil schools, you said, of course, dance competition and music competition, and the diaspora community, the Tamil community, is very widespread, and they do everything. But we also show it in front of the German people to show, yeah, that's my identity. That's a huge point. Yeah.
Good point. Good point. I think what's happening is the policy of many of these countries is also changing. Even in the United States, England, and other countries, there are schools and governments that say speak English at home. There was sometime back in Texas, a judge was going to send a child of a Hispanic parents for child protection. Removing the child from the parent because the judge said, you are speaking Spanish at home, that's damaging for the child, and if you don't speak English, I'm going to remove the child from your family. So there's a famous example. Yeah, they think if you don't speak the language of the country, it's not good for the development of the child. But as you said, it's changing in Germany, and I think it's changing in other countries also, because people do value multilingualism, that when people know more than one language, it's even more beneficial. So policies are changing. Do any others want to add anything to that topic?
I want to add in a quick point.
Go ahead, Mira.
Because Dr. Canagarajah, I know you were talking about families where parents and grandparents speak English, and my mom mainly spoke to me in Tamil, and that's why I am able to speak it very fluently. But it's interesting with my dad, I've just felt more comfortable. We've always kind of spoke mainly in English and some Tamil. But then there are a lot of other families here where children whose parents like only speak English to them, because it's not really a pressure for them to speak English, but it's just more convenient to speak English when the parents know. So it's a struggle for us to, and you know, as a generation that came here and going forward to the next generation, that's always been a fear of mine as to like, how do I keep forward? How do I have my own children to want to speak Tamil, to be able to speak Tamil? Because like you said, it is multilingualism is becoming more important. And I know some of my friends that were very jealous of me, like, wow, I wish my mom spoke to me in Tamil. And I wish my parents spoke to me in Tamil, but they didn't have that opportunity. And I think here also in the South, I'm lucky I had a Tamil school that formed when I was in high school. But before then, there was no Tamil school here. And in other areas in South Carolina, there are no Tamil schools. There's a very small community. So there's very little opportunity to learn Tamil. Outside of, virtual learning, like in-person learning is very hard to come by here.
Great point, great point. I think, and also as Preeta said, it takes effort for all of us. For parents,
Dr.
for children.
Canagarajah, may I add one point here quickly?
Okay, yeah.
Now, in my experience when talking to Mahishan, who speaks Tamil every single time, and it's all about the identity, who you are and what you are. I mean, if you lose your identity, no matter where you are, in the middle of, Mahishan will be there at Princeton University in the middle of 20 English-speaking students. If I call him, he will speak in Tamil. And the mother will ask him, Mahishan, can you speak English with me? Because I don't know English, I want to practice. Mahishan will say, Amma, English, but I feel like awkward for me to speak. So if Mahishan has that feeling of speaking Tamil, no matter where in the world he is, then why not? All of us, like Mira said, I somehow disagree with Mira. Mahishan will not speak English with me, even if I say something. So you should stop talking English with your dad and start speaking Tamil. Thank you.
But one quick question related to that is, at what age did Maishan come to United States?
So I arrived in the United States. Well, I lived in different settings prior to that arrival. I arrived, I think, in Canada around the age of 5, and then I came to the U.S. around the age of 8 or 9.
No, that's a good point. But just a small thing to add to the mix is that people who lived for a longer time seem to know a bit more Tamil than others. So I'm sure some of you in college are used to this phrase 1.5 generation. So the first generation is the people who are born in a foreign country and come here. Second generation are people who are born in the country where you are living now. 1.5 is people who are born somewhere else but grew up here. So people would say Maishan is a 1.5 generation person, in the sense he's half there, half here, and they are in a better situation to speak Tamil. But the other thing that Maishan said is also that part of his life was in Canada, and some families have more Tamil people around them. So I think London, Toronto, some of these cities have a stronger Tamil community, and there are more opportunities to learn Tamil. Whereas, for example, for Mira in South Carolina, it might be difficult to find other Tamil people. It's not an excuse for not knowing Tamil. It's just that there are other additional factors that might make it easy or difficult. So thank you very much. Because Nyanam sir talked about parents and also Mira talked about parents' attitudes. I want to skip the line of questions I gave you earlier, and move on to the question about parents, if you don't mind. And that is that parents have face a lot of conflicts in bringing up their children. I feel sorry for them. I'm not being critical. Like Nyanam and I are parents, and we have to confess that we are sometimes the first culprits in not spreading our culture and values to our children, because as some of you observed, we are lazy. we don't want to take too much time to talk in Tamil. It's easier to talk in English, etc. So I'll tell you just illustrate some of the challenges for Tamil parents, and you can add to them. So for example, Tamil parents are influenced by Tamil values, which are very traditional. And for the children who are born here, they might feel a lot of peer pressure to live according to Western values. So, for example, one of the big issues that a lot of parents, early immigrants face, I don't think it's an issue now, but Tamil parents can do physical punishment. They can slap their child. In Sri Lanka, they do. But in the US, I know cases where I know a family in Toronto where the child called the police, and the father had to go to anger management classes for a couple of weeks because the police said, no, you were not supposed to touch your child. So that's a major problem. A lot of people feel, parents feel, we are constrained in our countries. We are unable to discipline our children, so we have no control over them. There are other problems like for studies. Parents say, I want my child to become a doctor. I want my child to become an engineer. Here in this country, children have a lot more choices. There are more professions, more disciplines, but sometimes the parents don't know all of them, and they have a set view on what their children should do. The biggest problem, the most embarrassing problem, is dating. And a lot of, I know some Tamil parents who don't even let their children go on a sleepover for their elementary school children, like grade 2, grade 3. They would say, no sleepover parties for you. So, and then the child gets stigmatized as a child by their peers, as this child, Tamil friend of ours is not very friendly, he doesn't get to know other people, it's too isolated. So these are all some examples of problems for parents. So I thought Abhisha can help us start off with her thoughts about these kinds of conflicts.
First of all, I think that parents generally, regardless of their ethnicities, have conflicts when bringing up their children. It's not easy. It's a universal issue as well. I think parents essentially want their children to be good human beings. That's the fine line, the final line. Whether that be Tamil values or Western values, they just want their child to be good. So I know Tamil values are generally more on the lines of, oh, you be close to family even when you're older. When you're 25, you're still expected to be very much a part of the family. Whereas I know a lot of my friends at the age of 18, where you're legally an adult in the UK, they're quite independent from their families. They don't ask them for permission for things that I would as a Tamil child. So if I want to go on holiday with my friends, I would ask my parents, oh, is it okay if I go? But a lot of my British white friends would tell their parents, oh, I'm going on holiday, see you later. And I think that's the difference in Tamil culture and Western culture, like your family values, that's a key difference. So I think that parents generally just should see what works for them, what they're okay with and what your personal morals are, and kind of work with them. I think that's the best way to go about it. The second issue about punishing children, I think physically punishing children is very prevalent in South Asian culture. It's very normal. It's the normal thing to do. However, in Western society, you are taught in school that physical punishment is wrong and that it shouldn't occur. But when that happens at home, I think the child will go through some sort of conflict, because your parent is someone you trust so deeply. You trust them with everything. But then your school and your education is telling you that what they're doing is wrong. And so I think that brings in a little confusion on, oh, so am I allowed to break rules? Am I allowed to not follow what I'm being told? And I think it becomes a much larger issue than what parents initially mean by that, oh, you're not finishing your food, or you're not doing your homework, I'm going to slap you. It becomes a much bigger issue that I don't think people understand. I don't think people still understand, and we'll only see the effects of that as this generation grows up. And that's why I think maybe it isn't right to physically punish children in the Western culture, just because of the mental conflict that the child may go through.
Yeah.
Regarding professions, I think a profession shouldn't be chosen by the individual, because you are the one that's going to live that life. Your parents aren't. You are going to live in your profession. However, I do think if your parents are working individuals in these countries, they have much more knowledge than you do at the age of 18 when you're selecting your field. They have much more knowledge on, oh, how is the job market? How are people functioning in the work world? And they know you, they've brought you up, so they'll know how you deal with stress, how you deal at the time issues and things like that. So I think it's important to listen to their advice, and if it's appropriate, take it on board, because they're obviously going to want the best for you. However, if you think that it's not the best advice for you, it's also important to listen to teachers and other people in your life who may know more than your parents. It's important to take information from the right sources, I think.
Good point. Yeah. Thank you. I think what you said about punishment raises also an interesting thought about how some children react against their families and push back against their families when they are too strict, and they go all the way to the other extreme. They leave their home, or I know a couple of families where the children just broke away from their families. On the other hand, in our case, for our two daughters, we were a lot more relaxed, because we also, like Meera, live in a town where we are surrounded by a lot of Anglo-American families, and there are almost no Sri Lankan families. So, but what I found was this: there was a nice balance that developed, because they can't avoid our culture, even if you don't teach them or punish them, right? You would all agree, like all our parents, all our extended families are around us. We go to weddings and temples and cultural events, and they tag along with us. So I know that although we didn't really enforce our culture and morals very strongly, our daughters are aware about where we are coming from, and they're trying to develop a nice balance. So on the other hand, if he had been too strict, they could have broken away from our home, and they could have gone to all the other extreme. So I was wondering whether others also had thoughts about either your families or other families about how parents and children are managing ethics, morals, values. Let's ask Preeta, because you are from Germany. Would you say the German cultural values are slightly different from both Tamil values and Anglo-British or American values? Do Germans, this is like a deepening this question a little more, to ask whether Germany has slightly different expectations that you don't find in either English-speaking countries or Tamil-speaking countries.
So there's a huge difference between Germans and Tamils.
Oh.
Of course, like Abhisha said, I'm 20 years old and I still ask my mom if can I go out or something else. And some German friends didn't, or they don't, they will ask me like, you are 20 years old, you can't go out, or like, I said, no, it's not normal. It's a huge difference between Germans and of course Tamil. And
so are you saying Germans are much more independent?
Yeah, they are independent. They are really independent. I know some friends who don't go even to a school trip, like outside of Germany, and not to Italy. But my mom left me because I need to go with my class and with my teachers. But there are also strict parents. But German and Tamil is a huge difference. So it's
Right.
Dr. Canagarajah, I wanted to add one point.
Yeah, please.
I just want to direct this to Abhisha first and then to Vidya, and they are living in two different atmosphere, I think, in terms of living. And Abhisha, you said, well, you are living in the no man's land. I know you are you're falling in the English, or you are coming home and your mother or your father want you to go in a certain direction. Now, but as a parent, what I would advise you, find the break-even point and find the point where you can compromise part of it, and then you go for that. Anything and everything that the parent says, they are only concerned about you not being fallen into the trap of outside elements. So in that case, take the good advice from your parents and leave if it is annoying. I know you are sometimes annoyed by your mom or dad. So we'll advise them politely. Now coming to the Vidya. Vidya is someone from ever since, I think I don't know much about, but I have known Vidya for the past 3, 4, 5 years, I guess. So she is entirely traditionally growing with the parents' care and then parents' advice. And I guess if she's wrong, Vidya, you should tell me something. In that case, I think I want to hear Priya's opinion and perception to what Dr. Canagarajah said. How do you live in your home life? Can you tell us?
Sure, yeah. So I think the point about it being a balance was really what struck me the most, because that's definitely what it has been for me. For me, my parents definitely emphasized that my sister and I should be very connected to our culture through music. Especially, they had us both singing and learning classical Carnatic music, and so there would definitely, be moments in which there may have been differences or such things between my parents when at a young age I didn't understand fully the importance and value of that music. So definitely it was a balance in when I was young. I kind of needed to understand what my parents are telling me and why they're telling me. And I think something that like Avisha mentioned is that, you know, you may grow up with your parents raising you with the traditional Tamil values, and then you go outside of your home and you talk to your friends and they are, you know, kind of questioning your experience or telling you that their experience is very different from yours. And so like others had mentioned, oh, you know, why do you have to ask permission for this and that? But I think it's definitely a balance in understanding that your parents may have grown up in a different country than you and they were raised with certain values, and at the end of the day understanding what they're trying to impart to you, because I think those values are universal. You just want your kid, you know, to be hardworking and honest and kind and loving, and all these things are universal, whether that be Tamil values or Western values. It all boils down to these same things. So I think it was just understanding, even if I was younger, you know, and I'm like, why are my parents telling me so much to practice music? What is the point of this? But it's something that as I grew older and older, I really understood that my parents were telling me because it was in my best interest. And as I grew older, I understood that more and more. So it was definitely, you know, my parents would push, but if it came to a point where they saw that it was too much, they would also let me, you know, go and play, go explore other musical interests like piano and clarinet and other things. So it was always like they would push me to the right point, but also allow me to, you know, grow in other areas too. So it was definitely a balance back and forth as I was understanding what my parents are telling me and why, and they are also understanding how I am reacting to that and where I'm coming from and how I'm feeling. So it's definitely a two-way street and kind of based on how you're feeling and very like personal to that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. You know, we passed the 1 hour mark and I have another meeting at 3:30. So I want to quickly move to we are at 3:11 now. So I want to move to the next two questions to finish up. But I want to first, once again, change the order of questions and go to Vidya again with this question about how do you feel as students in the universities in your country? So it's a continuation of what Vidya said already. Now that you had this kind of balanced background, does it help you in your college life? Do you have any particular new pressures when you are in college where your upbringing may or may not be helping you? And also, of course, how do other students look at you? Do you face any kind of discrimination or prejudices? So we want to turn to your college life now to see, to talk about your experiences. So we'll start with Vidya.
Sure. So for me personally, having grown up with a strong both Tamil and American identity, when in my elementary and middle and high school, there were almost no other Tamil speaking students going to school with me. And entering my university also, though it's a very large university, my pharmacy program is quite small. And I was also, once again, one of the only Tamil students. And I found myself really longing for a Tamil community within my university because I had grown up with this dual identity and values from both sides. I found that American, identity around me everywhere, but I was searching for that Tamil group. So I could kind of feel that. I had never been discriminated against, but something that I did notice was, in my classes, there would be groups of students speaking to each other in their mother tongue, whether that be Gujarati or Korean. And I really wanted something like that, a group of Tamil friends who I can, bond with through our shared culture, watch films together and things like that. So something that I did was I joined groups on my campus. I joined an a cappella music group, which was actually a Western group, but funnily enough, the majority of the members were also Tamil speaking students, and that was really a turning point for me, because then not only did I have people to share my American passions and values with, but also now a group of close-knit Tamil friends where I can walk into the practice and immediately just start speaking in Tamil and just feel at home and very comfortable. So that's definitely the thing that I was searching for, was those people who speak the same language as me, and we share these unique values and things culturally in common. So once I joined groups with other Tamil speaking students, that's when I started to feel an increased sense of community and more at home within the university.
Yeah, that's a great point. That is, sometimes in the university you find more connection and more confidence in being who you are, because everybody is grown up, we assume, right? They are mature, they know how to respect other cultures and languages. So that's interesting that sometimes things change when you go to college. So on that note, I wanted to ask all of you briefly to say any piece of advice you have for other Sri Lankan or Tamil students who might be listening. If you were to give like one sentence, 2 sentences of advice, what would you say? You feel strongly about something you would like to tell your peers? Anybody?
I'll go ahead. Kind of adding on to what Vidya said, when I went to NYU for my undergrad, it was I joined a dance team. And so even though it wasn't specifically Tamil speaking students, it was really great to have that group of girls that I could come hang out with, share our, the culture of South Asia rather. So I would tell people in universities, college students to join that team, join whatever cultural organization you're interested in, be it a cappella, a dance team, or even just like they have regular like South Asian organizations in a lot of these colleges. So definitely join one of those if you're interested.
Yeah, that's a good point, because sometimes a lot of South Asian students might be too focused on their studies and not give enough time for social life. But as both of you are pointing out, there's a lot to gain from community, from the other friends around you. And it's part of education, to be involved in dance, music, cultural events, etc. Anybody else? Maishan, you haven't spoken for a few minutes. You want to add a sentence or 2 of advice for others?
Yes, sure. Well, thank you to everyone for your thoughts, and I would have to emphasize and repeat what I think Mira and Vidya have said is to really take the chance and the opportunity to learn about your culture and being Tamil outside of your own family. I think it's important, especially for speaking for myself. I really became interested and really became more proud of being Tamil and being part of my culture after having the chance to travel to Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka by myself, and to experience the culture and the people and the music by myself. And I think that was an important part of accepting my identity and being okay. So I would suggest that that people in the diaspora take the chance to explore in that way.
Good. And Abhisha had something to add.
I think, as Mira and Vidya said, being at university, you really want to find that Tamil community. But sometimes when you want to share that with your other friends, your other white or other friends, it can be quite daunting to be able to share that culture. And I think sometimes it's all about just letting go and being like, we do things this way, and this is how we do things in our culture. And sometimes you just learn that they are interested, they genuinely want to know about your culture, and it's something that you should never have been afraid of. And I think it's just about taking your time to open up to other people and teach them about your culture. They just want to learn.
Great. Yeah, not only maintain your culture, but also be an ambassador for your culture, right? To introduce, because if not you, who else? Who can talk about your background, your language, your culture, your traditions to other people? So yeah, we have a responsibility. So we'll move to the final question, which is, we almost touched on this, that is, should we be mediators for our communities and cultures and homelands in the places where we live? Is it our responsibility? And in reverse, should we keep in touch with events in our homelands? And should we contribute to the developments in our countries? So, for example, we know that because in Sri Lanka, because of the fighting and the war, educational infrastructure, economic infrastructure has collapsed. There are a lot of people in refugee camps, and in schools there are kind of new problems. A lot of people say a lot of the culture has also changed there in all our countries because of the conflict and movement and mobility. People are not stable as they used to be. So in teachers in Sri Lanka are saying the values have changed. The children are not focused only on studies. They also want quick money, for example. Or people in the diaspora, now here's where we are responsible. The diaspora is sending a lot of money to their relatives at home, and people are getting quick money, easy money. And a lot of children are finding easy ways out. You know, like everybody has an iPhone, everybody has a scooter or motorbike. Like when I was growing up, I used to go only by cycle to school, push bike. But now they say a lot of people have a motorbike, and they could be coming to school in a motorbike. So there are new problems back home. And in some ways we are contributing to it also, because sometimes the help we give is not very thought out. You know, it's easy stuff we do, like sending cash rather than helping in a more educational ways, you know, to be more concerned about what's going on there. So I was thinking if Meera can start us off with, should all of us who live here be in touch with our homeland and be concerned about what's going on and contribute to the development there?
Sure. So short answer, yes. Of course, we should be concerned with our homeland, and because I think we all identify with Sri Lanka, with Tamil Nadu, with the Tamil culture. So it's important for us to be able to identify not just within the diaspora, but also back in Sri Lanka about what things are going on there, how we can help, or what's the best way to help. And in terms of, I'd like to touch on that point you made about sending the money to relatives. It's difficult. I mean, because when I first saw your question, I was thinking about, we do a lot of fundraising efforts here, and we send money, by bicycles or, cows or whatever, just to help improve the infrastructure there. And so that's how I have been personally involved directly in terms of improving the homeland in terms of fundraisers here. Luckily, I don't have to deal with sending money. All my family, my direct family lives here, but that was something my parents had to do, and that was I don't know, that's a tough place where you want to be able to support because you have this opportunity that you came here, but you also don't want to, you don't want to sustain your family there forever. You want them to be able to do their own jobs as well. So that's a difficult question. But for the diaspora students, what I'd like to really point on is knowing the culture there. It's hard when we live here. We have a very different culture than what we have over there. I was pretty fortunate. I spent 2 summers in my undergraduate career in Sri Lanka. So the first summer after freshman year, I was working as a research assistant in University of Jaffna in the Department of Zoology with Dr. Ishwar Mohan. And that summer was just eye-opening for me. I took the bus from Savachari to the main town, and then another bus to the university campus, and it was an amazing experience. And to know that my cousins, if my life path had changed somehow differently, I would have been going through that same thing. I would have been getting on that bus, going to college this way, waking up early, whatever it was, maybe even a cycle. If I was lucky enough to have people supporting me, maybe a motorcycle. But I think it's very important to know the culture there, some parts of it, growing up here, it's difficult to identify with, especially as a woman, female traveling alone, and I wouldn't be allowed to go by myself to a lot of places, from like Jaffna to Battico in a bus by myself. No, that would not be allowed. But I'm over here road tripping everywhere in America, so that was a little constraining for me. But I think it's important to understand, or to know that people who are our age that just live over there have different circumstances.
Yeah. Well, just a quick note that I don't mean to say we shouldn't send money, but we can try to identify the local needs. I think what happens is we don't know the local conditions. So what happened, or one example I have is we did the same thing like you did, collected money here and sent it to a school there. And what we found was the school was spending all the money on putting up fancy new buildings and gardens. And the teachers were not very well trained, for example, for English. So we said, why don't you spend some of this money to send them abroad for training, for US or England, because that will be more rewarding. They'll go back to Jaffna and help their students even better. So we tried to channel the money in directions that might be more useful. So that's one thing we can do. And the other thing you mentioned is also good, that is, go there and see what you can contribute, because it's good both ways. That is, you also found it enriching to learn about local culture. So do others have experiences like that? Where I know, like Maishan, you said you went to Sri Lanka and India, so you might have had experiences of not only visiting but also learning. And that would help you as a person growing up here.
Yes, so I had the chance to visit Jaffna and Colombo a few times in the past few years, and I was able to speak to people, professors and experts there about the state of the country and what was happening, as well as I spent quite a bit of time in Chennai speaking to cultural experts in Chennai and learning about Tamil Nadu and the thousands of years of Tamil history in Chennai. And so I think that was very important it was very enriching, like you said. And it was important, it made me appreciate my culture and my background more because of that.
Very good, very good. Any thoughts from others about how you are connected to your homeland and how it may or may not be helping you?
Abhisha?
I generally just talking to family members there and being with them and going and visiting every few summers is what I do to stay connected with people there. I think that's the way I connect with people, like knowing my family there, knowing their lives, and knowing how their lives go about their lives is a way in which I'm connected with.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. Yeah, so we have 3 minutes more. I think this is a good conversation to just show the range of thoughts and experiences all of you have. You're all very thoughtful, balanced youth. You are you're kind of very different from the extremes we know in the Tamil community. People who might break away from our culture, or people who are assimilated completely, that they don't know anything about Tamil. They are not connected at all with the community. So you're not part of either extreme, and that's really relieving to know that we have thoughtful, balanced people like you in our Tamil community. So thank you for participating. I think it would have been very enriching for our listeners to hear from you, from your own mouths, about how you feel, because there's no point adults like Nyanam sir and me preaching to the Tamil community, because they want to listen to you. So thank you very much, and I give it to Nyanam sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Suresh Canagarajah. We can thank you now on behalf of, I don't want to take much of your time, you have to leave, I think. On behalf of the Center for Education, Innovation, Leadership and Community Service, this is the community outreach initiative, and we are here to inspire youngsters all around the world, and not necessarily youngsters back homeland as well as in the foreign, in the diaspora community. So we will reach out, we always reach out to youngsters and adults and to get their inspiring story and share them through YouTube or Facebook. So please continue to work, and like Dr. Canagarajah and all other amazing panel speakers said, that they are, it looks like it built my confidence that these youngsters plus the others in the diaspora community are ready to come out and then work for the betterment of our community, and I'm so glad, and this is going to work out well. We will definitely find a vibrant Tamil community all around the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Canagarajah. Okay.
Thank you.
பேராசிரியர் ஞானசேரம் மற்றும் டாக்டர்ஸ் அண்ட் அதர் ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ். ஞானசேரம் பேராசிரியர் சொல்லுங்க.
புலம்பெயர் நாடுகளிலுடைய மாணவர்களாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, இளம் வயதினராக இருந்தாலும் சரி, பெற்றோர்களாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, அவர்களுடைய திறமைகளை நீங்கள் வெளியிலே கொண்டு வருகிறீர்கள். அண்மை காலமாக உங்களுடைய நிகழ்வுகளை நான் பார்த்திருக்கிறேன். சிறுவர் நிகழ்ச்சி நடக்கின்றது. அதாவது ஈழத்தாய் தொலைக்காட்சி நிறுவனம் மிகவும் ஒரு சமூக சேவை நோக்குடன் இயங்குகின்றது என்பது அது அளப்பெரிய சேவை எங்களுடைய சமூகத்திற்கு. அதை நீங்கள் முன்னின்று நடத்துகின்றீர்கள். நிச்சயமாக உங்களுக்கு அங்கே சொர்க்கத்திலே இடம் உண்டு.
பெரியவர்கள் ஆசீர்வாதம் தான் முக்கியமானது.
You will be rewarded in the heaven என்று சொல்வார்கள். அதை தொடர்ந்து செய்யுங்கள். இன்றைய நிகழ்வானது இளம் மாணவர்கள், அதாவது ஒரு பானை சோற்றுக்கு ஒரு சோறு பதம் என்று சொல்வார்கள். 5 மாணவர்கள் இங்கு வந்து கதைத்தது, அது எங்களுடைய டயஸ்போரா, எங்களுடைய புலம்பெயர் நாடுகளிலே அவர்களை போன்று பலர் இருக்கின்றார்கள். அவர்களுடைய திறன்களையும் நாங்கள் மற்ற நேரங்களிலே முன்கொண்டு வருவோம். அவர்களுடைய திறன்களை எங்களுடைய புலம்பெயர் நாடுகளுக்கு எடுத்து காட்டுவோம் என்ற இந்த இடத்திலே நான் அவருக்கு ஒரு நம்பிக்கையான அந்த நம்பிக்கையான உணர்வை அவர்கள் கூட்டிக் கொண்டு,
நிச்சயமாக இது வரவேற்கத்தக்கது. ஏனென்று சொன்னால் புலம்பெயர்ந்த மக்கள் எப்படி இருக்கிறார்கள், தங்களது கல்வி நெறியை எப்படி கொண்டு வரார்கள், தாய்மொழியான தமிழை எப்படி கொண்டு வரார்கள், அவர்களுக்குள்ள கஷ்டங்களை நீங்கள் எல்லோரும் இருந்து அதை பற்றி ஆலோசித்தது மிக முக்கியமானது. உண்மையாக சொல்ல போனால் எனக்கு என்னில் இருக்கிற ஈடுபாடு என்னென்னு சொன்னால், தாய்மொழியை மறந்தால் தாயை மறந்தது சமமாகும். அந்த வகையில் நீங்களும் டாக்டர் சுரேஷ் அவர்களும் அந்த மாணவர்களிடம் இருந்து கேட்கப்பட்ட கேள்விகள் நாங்கள் கேட்கக்கூடியதாக இருந்தது. அவர்கள் மனதில் இருந்து வருவதைத்தான் அவர்கள் சொல்கிறார்கள். இப்படி நாங்கள் நாட்டில் எப்படி இருந்தோம், இங்கே எப்படி இருக்கிறோம், இனி வர்ற என்ன சந்ததிக்கு எப்படி நாங்கள் இருக்க வேண்டும், எமது பிள்ளைகளுக்கு எப்படி, எங்களுடைய பேரண்ட்ஸ் எங்களுக்கு தமிழை கற்றுக் கொடுத்தார், தமிழோடாக எங்களுக்கு உணவை ஊட்டியதனால் எங்களோடு அது பயணிக்கின்றது. இங்கு புலம்பெயர்ந்த நாடுகளில் இருக்கிறவர்கள் அந்த தமிழை எப்படி எடுத்து செல்ல வேண்டும், அந்த தமிழை அவர்களோடு எப்படி ஒட்டி பிணைந்திருக்கணும். ஏனென்றால் எங்கள மொழி எங்கள தாய்மொழி பல 100 ஆண்டுகள், பல ஆயிரக்கணக்கான ஆண்டுகள், 100 இல்ல ஆயிரக்கணக்கான ஆண்டுகளுக்கு முதல் தோன்றிய நமது தாய்மொழி அந்த தமிழ் மொழி. அதை நாங்கள் எங்கு சென்றாலும் அதனை மேலும் மேலும் ஊட்டி, உண்மையாக அதில் ஒரு சொன்னவா என்னென்று சொன்னால், அது கொஞ்சம் கடினமாக இருந்தது. தான் 12ஆம் வகுப்பில் படித்த பின்பு எனக்கு அது இனிமையாக இருந்தது என்று. அது உண்மையாக வீட்டில் நாங்கள் பேசிக்கொள்வோமே, ஆனால் தாய் தந்தையர் அந்த கடினம் கூட இருக்காது. மிக ஆரம்பத்திலேயே அது இனிப்பாகவே வரும். அதை எல்லோரும் புரிந்து கொள்ள வேண்டும். அந்த சேவையை நீங்கள் அமெரிக்காவில் செய்தீர்கள். அதே மாதிரி எல்லா நாடுகளிலும் ஒவ்வொருவரும் அதை ஏற்றுக்கொண்டு இப்போது பயணிக்கிறார்கள். அது வரவேற்கத்தக்கது என்று சிலர் சொல்வார்கள். ஏனென்றால் தமிழ் இனி சாகும் என்பார்கள். நிச்சயமாக அதை சாவதற்கான எந்த ஒரு அறிகுறியும் இல்லை. அதை சாகடிக்க முடியாது என்று சொல்லுவாங்க. என்று சொன்னால் ஒவ்வொருவரும் இங்கு வந்து கலந்து கொண்ட யூனிவர்சிட்டியில் கல்வி கற்கிறவர்கள், பல்கலைக்கழகத்தில் கல்வி கற்கிற ஒவ்வொரு ஸ்டூடெண்ட் மனதிலும் அந்த தமிழை பற்றி வார்த்தைகள் வந்தது. தமிழை எப்படி நாங்கள் காக்க வேண்டும் என்றதை அந்த பெண் வந்து கொஞ்சம் ஒரு ஆவேசமாய் அவர்களுக்கும் அந்த மன வருத்தத்தை சொல்ல முடியாத மாதிரி அவர் சொன்ன வார்த்தைகள் எங்களுக்கு உண்மையாக அது எமது உணர்வோடு பகிர்ந்திருக்கின்றது. நல்ல ஒரு நிகழ்வு, நல்ல இப்படியான நிகழ்வை நாங்கள் எடுத்து செல்ல வேண்டும். நீங்கள் புலம்பெயர்ந்த நாடுகளிலிருந்து மற்ற நாடு, ஜெர்மன் எல்லா நாட்டிலும் இந்த வழி சென்றடைய வேண்டும் என்பது எனது விருப்பம். அதேபோல் நானும் அவர்களுக்கான எப்படியான உதவிகளை என்னால் செய்ய முடியுமோ செய்த வண்ணமே இருப்பேன்.
நன்றி, மிக்க நன்றி. இந்த இறுதியாக சொல்வார்கள் தமிழன் என்று சொல்லடா தலை நிமிர்ந்து நில்லடா. தமிழ் என்ற வார்த்தை எங்களுடைய அடையாளம், எங்களுடைய அடையாளம் தான் தமிழ் என்ற வார்த்தை. அந்த அடையாளத்தை மறப்பவர்கள் தாயை மறந்தவர்களுக்கு சரி என்று பலர் கூறுவார்கள். அதைத்தான் நானும் மீண்டும் கூறுகின்றேன். தமிழ் மொழி என்னுடைய சிறு பிள்ளைகளுக்கு தமிழ் மொழியை ஊட்ட வேண்டும், தமிழ் மொழியை பரப்ப வேண்டும். தமிழை பேசுவதில் நான் தமிழனாக இருப்பதில் பெருமை அடைகிறேன், நான் தமிழ் மொழியை பேசுவதில் பெருமை அடைகிறேன் என்ற வார்த்தைகளை நாங்கள் இங்கே எங்களுடைய வாயிலே உச்சரித்துக் கொண்டு இருக்க வேண்டும் என்ற இந்த இடத்திலே கேட்டுக்கொண்டு இன்றைய இந்த நிகழ்வுக்கு அருமையான இந்த சந்தர்ப்பத்தை அளித்த ஈழத்தாய் நிறுவனத்துக்கு, அதாவது ஈழம் தமிழ் டெலிவிஷன் கனடாவில் டொரண்டோவில் இருந்து அதன் உரிமையாளர் வாட்சிக்கும் அவருடைய தொழில்நுட்ப உதவியாளர்களுக்கும் எங்களுடைய அந்த எஜுகேஷன், இன்னோவேஷன், லீடர்ஷிப் அண்ட் கம்யூனிட்டி சர்வீஸ் என்ற இந்த நிறுவனத்தின் சார்பில் உங்களுக்கு நன்றி தெரிவித்துக் கொண்டு இந்த நிகழ்வை நான் விடைபெறுகின்றேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம் ராய்.
நன்றி, வணக்கம். இதில் கலந்து கொண்ட அனைத்து மாணவர்களுக்கும், பேராசிரியர் உங்களுக்கும், பேராசிரியர் மற்றும் ஒரு பேராசிரியர் டாக்டர் சுரேஷ் அவர்களுக்கும் எம்மோடு இணைந்து இந்த நிகழ்வை எடுத்து சென்றவைக்கு நன்றி, மிக்க நன்றி, மிக்க நன்றி.
நன்றி, வணக்கம்.